Hey everyone, welcome to issue number 1 of Color Break. I'm your host, Cody Collects, or Cody. You can just call me Cody.
Just for today, buddy.
And just for today, and I am here with my co-host, Christian, or Comic Book Stash on TikTok. What's up, buddy?
And that's a stash like mustache, by the way.
That's true. You do have to say that every single time.
Oh,
because
100%.
It's like a pun.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's it going, Cody?
Yeah, dude. Listen, first issue or episode of this new podcast. Why don't you tell me a little bit about, Christian, what this is supposed to be, this podcast, right? What's your vision?
So my vision is this. First of all, I do have to say this is the third time I have talked to Cody ever.
True, that's true.
We've been friends.
The first. Yep.
Yeah, we've been friends online, but we haven't we chat, but we haven't talked. And I was like, oh, I want to talk to Cody. He's my friend, but I just want this podcast to be a conversation that people are listening to.
Might as well record it, you know.
Oh, 100%. That's how all friendships go, I think. And to me, the thing is
We're
that
at that level now.
Oh, 100%. We just talk about comic books, so I was like, this is sort of our thing. And I didn't have a lot of people to talk comic books to. And I was like, hey, maybe there's people out there who would like to listen to comic book conversations that are not super structured. We're going to have a structure and a format, but it's going to be just a conversation, you know? Not today, but next episode I might crack a beer open, just have some fun. but yeah.
But yeah, so I guess like Christian's saying, this is just a chill, hanging out podcast, talking to my bud. We'll have guests on occasionally. Of course, this is underneath, I guess, the crossover comics umbrella of podcasts we're trying to do. This is one of the 2 first ones that we're starting out with. And yeah, I guess the tagline would be, right, Color Break, your third favorite comic book podcast.
Yeah, we don't know what the other 2 are.
That third spot, right?
Yeah, we don't want to be your favorite because it's not even my favorite.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's not even my favorite.
Exactly.
And I don't listen
it's
to
not even our favorites. And yeah, and it's so much pressure to be the number 1. So we'll just sit right in the number 3, just chilling.
Yeah, you know how people want to get sponsors. If we get them, cool. But totally down to just do this for free.
Yeah.
Just an excuse to talk about comic books.
The only thing I could really use, right, if Image wants to send me free comics, that'd be great, because I'm probably keeping those guys in business. I don't want to brag, but I really do be buying all their comics. But yeah, that's a little bit about ourselves. I figure, what's another way that the listener or viewer, because it's a video too, we gotta remember, how can they get to know us, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, one of your oh dude, it's a classic TikTok from back in the day, a month ago, where you were what's your comic book origin story, right? So I figure that's a good first topic to
and you know what,
know us a little better.
No one has ever mentioned to me that I never told my origin. I sort of just threw
so this is an exclusive.
Oh yeah, no, I made so for people who haven't watched it, I made a TikTok. It was for people to stage telling me their origin story as a reader, because we know the origin story Batman, but I don't know Cody's origin story. I don't know how he got to this place reading comics.
Right.
And I just, for some reason, I wanted to make this, and I will make it at some point. Just be on the lookout. Probably when I get to 1,000 or something. I want to make this animated, actually an animation of how I started reading comic books.
Oh wow!
So,
right.
But we're doing this right now. I'm gonna tell everyone. And I will
break exclusive.
Yeah, that's how we roll here. So 2020, I went. Actually, let me go back more. Let's go back to the year 2002.
Whoa, okay. All right.
Let's go back to the year 2002.
Okay. When you were 4 or whatever.
I was exactly 4. Yes. My parents had a car, and it was the first car I've ever had. And my parents were gonna sell it, and I was really sad. I was crying all day, very emotional boy. And my dad decided like, hey, let me buy this kid something, you know. And he bought me a figure of who I thought was the Flash. It was the Reverse Flash, and I found this out like 10 years after. And I just immediately put all my emotions into the Flash. It was like, oh, this is my new obsession now. And I grew up watching like shows like Teen Titans, like and shit like that. Like, I just like the Flash, which is funny because now I don't read the Flash. Like I've tried to get into it and I like it, but I just haven't kept up with it. But yeah, fast forward about let's say 19 years probably. I'm in New York with my girlfriend.
Give or take.
Yeah, give or take, like 19 years. I'm in New York with my girlfriend, and she says, like, hey, Midtown Comics. You seem like you would like comic books.
Wow.
And I was like, do you think I'm a nerd? Get out of here. I'm not a nerd. I just happen to know these things. I just know about comic books. I don't read them. And she was like, let's go. Because like she knows me more than I know myself, which is something I found out later. And I walked into Midtown Comics, glorious. For someone who lives in Florida, and actually, like, I moved to the U.S. from Ecuador when I was 18. So, like, I think they just opened a comic book store in Ecuador. Like, that, there's not a lot of them. So, I was like, okay, walked into Midtown Comics, and I said, okay, let's leave. This ain't for me.
Right.
You're so wrong. And
that's the funny thing, too, because, like, sorry to cut you off, but the like Midtown Comics, right? That's like the one that everybody knows about. And
it's the mecca.
Like
it's like the mecca of comic books. Like everyone's like, and I just walked
like,
out.
To walk in there for your first one, it must have been like so overwhelming. It's like
I know, no. I just told her like I don't like comic books. Like, I'm gonna walk out. I'm not a nerd. Who do you think I am? And fast forward like a year or so. Free Comic Book Day rolls around. This was first Free Comic Book Day after COVID, so it was in May instead of no, it was in August instead of May. And she's like, okay, let's go. And I said, once again, not a nerd. You got me wrong. You got me pinned down as the wrong guy. And she said, hey, it's free. You're losing nothing. There's nothing that you could lose from this other than getting a free book. And I went and I spent $30. True. Because I can tell you the first comic book I bought to read, because I bought comic books in the past just to like own, but the first comic book I bought to read was Spider-Ham by Seb Wells. I think it's a 2015 or 2016 run. I bought the first 4 issues. They did not have number 5, and I still don't have issue number 5 after all this time. But yeah, I bought it, and
So if anybody's listening and you have number 5, let us know.
If you have Spider-Ham number 5 by Seb Wells, please just send it in. No, I've been looking for every comic book store I walk into, like, because I don't want to buy it on eBay, like, or like whatnot. Like that's pretty cool, and I the people that sell like but this is like a challenge for me. Like I want to walk in and see it and be like, that's it, the book I want.
Right.
Like I want to hunt for it. Because I could look for it, like, I could find it on eBay. Like I have like the Marvel Unlimited app. I could read it today, like right now. But no, I set myself up with this challenge of finding that book. But yeah, no, I spent like $30, and then I didn't go to a comic book store after that for at least like a day. Yeah, I went back the next day.
So you were right. Yeah.
And then I started.
You were hooked immediately.
The funny thing is, I started just looking for other comic book stores in the area. South Florida has a bunch of them, and I found this one store because the first one I went to, it's not like it was bad, but it was a bigger store, so like it wasn't like, it was just like, hey, there's the comic books, go check. And it was free comic book day, so it was kind of hard to like get help, which I understand. It's the heaviest day of the year for them. But then I went and found this just on Google, this pretty small store called Phil's Comic Shop, and I went small store like the size of this room, ignoring the sheet, and yeah, I said like, hey, I want to start reading, and guy Brian walked me through every single comic book there was, and yeah, then I went to my girlfriend's house to show her dad, because her dad used to read comic books, to show him my haul, And he was like, Phil's, that's
Right.
where I used to shop in the 80s.
No, oh wow,
Yeah,
that's really cool. Actually,
coincidence, yeah.
yeah.
And
Dang,
yeah,
man, that's okay.
I've been going to Phil's ever since. It's my favorite place. I worked there last free comic book day just to help. And yeah, just farther along the line, just talking to my girlfriend about comic books, she was like, "Hey, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't read them." She was like, "I got you into it." And like, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
she read Runaways, like she's read some comic books, the Adventure Time comic books, but she just doesn't read them right now. So she just didn't really understand what I was saying at all. And she was like, "Hey, like you studied film, you have a film degree, start with like a TikTok account or something." And yeah, I started my TikTok account. Then just to like, I'm gonna run that through the TikTok part. Started my TikTok account. One fateful Wednesday, I got a shout out from a guy named Cody Collects. I teared up a little bit. Um, and yeah, no, then farther in the line, I was just talking to Cody. I was like, "Hey, you want to start a Discord server? Like, just you and me? With like another
dude,
friend?"
it like took off from there, man.
Yeah, just like you and me and another friend. And then I think you were like, "Hey, can I add someone else?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then now we're like 50. And with 2 podcasts.
Yeah, now it's kind of massive. Yeah.
2 podcasts, a TikTok
No, dude,
account.
that's a great origin story. I feel like, it's kind of funny because I'm trying to think about like when I got really into it, and I think mine kind of mirrors yours like almost perfectly. So like after, so 2020, I don't know if you guys heard there's a little pandemic that,
It's kind of weird.
but so that happened. So my classes like in March, they went all online, and all of a sudden I had a ton of time on my hands because like at that point the teachers checked out, the students checked out, just no one
Oh,
really
so
cared
like
about
you and me
classes.
graduated
You know what
like
I mean?
online, right? Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't
like,
get to walk.
yeah, like
I didn't get to walk and get my diploma.
I didn't
was
get to
in my
walk either. Yeah,
I was in my
me
living
neither.
room.
Yep. That's the classic. But so like I had a ton of time in my hand, and I downloaded Comixology. Just reading some of the stuff on there. I didn't pay for it at that point, but like in the past, I had gone to some comic book stores. Like I remember my mom. This is back when I used to live in Texas, so like I don't know, 12 years ago or something. But my mom used to take me to the comic book store maybe like every other week, and she'd be like, "All right, you have like $10 to spend today." So I would just like walk around and pick stuff up and buy it. But like everything I would get, like I didn't really understand that. Oh, like comic books, like they're an arc, right? So like you have to get, issue 4, 5, and 6 to get the 3-story arc.
You just
So I was just
start
picking
reading
up,
like, what? Robin died? What?
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Like I would just pick up a comic and like, oh, the cover looks cool, right?
Oh,
Like
100%.
I remember specifically, I was like really into the Riddler for like whatever reason. I guess probably for the animated show. And I used to have this like Riddler like action figure. He had like a cane in his hand that was like attached and you couldn't take it out. But I would like carry that with me everywhere for whatever reason. I don't know why. I guess I probably like the color green. I guess that's probably he's really green, so that's probably something to do with it. Um, but but yeah, so like stuff like that. Like I would just pick up, nothing really made sense to me. I wasn't really grasping what was going on.
Oh no! When you first, when you first start, you really don't know anything. And that's like the thing I want to stress to people
Exactly,
who are
yeah.
like, to people who are listening right now, and like either like want to start reading or just started. I want to say this: I've been reading for. It's gonna be like a year and like a week, and I know nothing.
Right.
Like I want to stress that I know nothing.
Yeah. We're not
I read
experts
things
by any means.
I read things and they leave my brain. Like for example, my favorite ongoing series like right now. I wouldn't say it's my favorite series of all time, but it's just like the thing that like really gets me excited right now is Nice House on the Lake. Great series. If you ask me a character name, I know none of them.
No, I feel you. Especially for that one, there's like a lot of characters, but they are like so unique that I can kind of like, oh, there's the comedian dude, but I don't really remember his name. Yeah,
100%.
that's the nature of monthly issue comics too, right? Like, in that month, I literally live a month of my life, right? Like, so it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, especially with indie comics, I feel like it's all new people.
Right.
That like, I mean, like Spider-Man, I'm not gonna forget because Spider-Man's been there since like 60 years ago.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like indie comics, I know nothing. So don't be afraid to
of
not
them,
know
like,
things.
A lot of them. Yeah, definitely. Some of them read better in like a trade. You know what I mean? Where you can just binge like the 6 issues instead of waiting, half a year to read the full story. But yeah, so like back in the day, that's how I got into comics, with just my mom encouraging me. She knew I was a nerd, like would buy me, costumes, and like I'm always watching Batman animated series. She would record the episodes for me on DVR. You know what I mean? So that's how I got into comics back then. But then I lapsed like for a really long time until 2020. Download Comixology, just reading stuff here and there. But I didn't start getting physical comics. I used to order off Midtown Comics online, actually, so it's funny that you mentioned that Midtown Comics was like your first one.
That's our start.
Just like, exactly, right? I feel like that's a good start for anyone. Just Googling, like, what's a pull list, right? And then, it's like, oh, okay, Midtown Comics lets you do a pull list. And
I was so lost on even what a pull list was, that like one day I just showed up to my comic book store and he was like, hey, I put him in a pull list, and I was like, what? What even is that? I was like, you kept them all for me? Wow, this is special treatment. And like, then I found out, like, it's not special treatment.
That's just
you
business.
Can just do that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because like maybe, okay, so I don't know if you're familiar, but like when DC, this was at the beginning of 2021, DC like took a little break with all their older stuff, and they had the Future State line.
I know about it. I just didn't read it.
Yeah, so essentially, like, everything was kept in continuity like before. It wasn't like a crisis event that restarted it, like birthed the new 52 or whatever.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, okay, everything in the past is still the same, but we're going to jump like 15 years in the future and have like a bunch of new series that are in the future. So that's when I started. I was like, oh, this is the perfect time to actually start. I'm going to do all my research. What's a pull list? Whatever, right? And that's when I kind of like jumped headfirst in. I was getting like almost every one of the Future State books just because like I just wanted to absorb as much as I could. And a lot of them weren't that good. But right after the Future State like event ended, they kind of went back, and a lot of creative teams started on past series, kind of revamping them, right? So like a good example is Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Redondo. I forgot the artist's name. I can't remember. Bruno Redondo. I don't know how to say it. But anyway, so that's like a new creative team that jumped on at issue like 73 or whatever it was, right? So that was like the perfect time. I can't think of a better time to start, reading comics. Is all right, Future State, that's ended. A lot of it was bad, but now we're going to start. A lot of new teams are jumping on, taking over older series and stuff like that. So that's when I started, reading everything like under the sun. And that was, so that was like early. So we're both like almost maybe a year, year and a half. So
do you remember the first like ongoing series you started reading?
The first ongoing? I mean, it was like, it was like that first wave, like right after the Future State line. Like I subscribed to Batman, so I'm reading Tinian's Batman like near the end of it, getting ready for like Fear State, and I'm reading Nightwing and a lot of DC stuff, right? Like when DC.
For me, my first one was Thor by Donny Cates. I jumped in when they were like on like issue like 15, and I
think started buying where I jumped into. Yep.
I started buying them, and then like I asked like Brian, the guy that works there, like, hey, how many are there? And he was like 15, and I was like, oh, I can buy 15. Just started weekly like buying them like 3 or 4, and then I got to issue number 15, and he was like, well, 16 just came out, and I was like, what? It's just gonna keep going.
Right.
He was like, yeah, it might be like 25 issues. Going. I don't know. He was like, it might be like 25. I don't know. And it's not. It's more. But
Yep.
But yeah, I feel like, I know when I started, I just wanted to buy single issues. For some reason, that's what I like. When I think of comic books, I think of single issues. I don't think of trades. Although
For
I do
sure,
have like
yeah.
60 trades now. Like I just think of single issues. So I
Mm,
just wanted to buy single issues, but since I was new, I just wanted to read like origin stories, and like those are not easy to come by.
right.
Like especially with like
No.
ongoing
Yep, you
series,
gotta
you
get those in a
don't
trade,
get.
right?
Yeah, but I do want to say like for any new reader, it's you can jump into like for example Donny Cates like the Donny Cates like Thor. It's pretty much like you jump in for like one issue, maybe you don't know what's going on, and then you just catch up. I
Yeah,
feel like it's
for
kind
sure.
of
Like
daunting
I
to like jump
definitely agree
into
with
it.
that.
It's daunting to jump into it, but once you start reading it, you don't need the origin story. Even if it's a character you don't know enough about, you'll find out. You know, if
Pretty
you
quick,
want to read
yeah.
the
I
origins,
agree.
like look for the trades, like not a problem, but like it's not necessary. It's not as necessary as I thought it was gonna be, because I definitely thought it was gonna be like, oh my god, I'm gonna be lost. Who even is Thor?
Yeah,
But
so like I'm totally with you. Like at around that time, that's when I started. I'm like, oh, okay, like what, I'm getting mostly DC books. I'm looking across to the other side and seeing like everything that's going on at Marvel, and then you just talk with your shop owner, right? Like, oh, she really recommended Daredevil, right? So that's where I kind of fell in love with Zdarsky. As I jumped on, I forgot which issue I jumped on. Maybe like, I don't know, issue like 18 or something like that. So it's kind of the same thing as you, where I didn't read 1 through 17. She didn't have them, right? But she's like 18. That's the start of a new arc, whatever. That might be wrong. I'm not sure if it was 18, but you know what I mean. So yeah, that's just like the easiest thing to do is get recommendations from your shop owner.
Oh
They'll
yeah,
set you up right.
100%. Like
Yeah.
most of them are nice. Like I feel like like the comic book community on like TV or like movies, like they get like a bad rap, but like they're all
Like The
you know,
Simpsons,
like,
right?
just,
That's
like-
the classic.
yeah. No. Most of the people I have talked to, because you'll get some bad experiences. Sometimes they happen.
Yeah,
Not
everybody has
everyone's
bad days,
nice. Not everyone's nice in this world sometimes. But for the most part,
Mm.
like look at it like this. Even if it's you're just talking from a business standpoint, they want to sell. They want to sell. They want to take. They want to get your money. So if you ask them for help, they're gonna give it.
They'll
to you.
recommend you 20 things.
Yeah, like they're not gonna be like, oh yeah, no, just look yourself. Like no, like it's a business. Like they're gonna be like, okay,
Yeah.
what do you like? So like
Right.
looking at it as a business is kind of scary sometimes, but like it's a nice community. At least my comic book store that I go to is fantastic. Like that guy's my
Right.
friend. He's not just a worker. Like he's my friend. When I got
Mhm.
last year I got sick with COVID around December. He texted me like, "Hey, you okay? You didn't come in this week."
Oh, because you hadn't been coming in. Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
just didn't go
funny,
in
yeah.
for what I normally go in on like Thursdays or Wednesdays, and by Friday I
Mm.
just wasn't there, and he like messaged me on Facebook, and he was like, "Yo, you you good, man?"
That's funny. Yeah, yeah.
So I
Nah,
think
that's great.
really like
Nah, dude.
for new
that's
readers, think about that, right? Your store is
True.
gonna be like you're gonna be there a lot. If you're gonna be buying physically, you're gonna be there a lot. So like just think like
Mhm.
those people are gonna become your friends at some point, and they're gonna recommend you good things. Don't be afraid to ask like,
Yep.
"Hey, what's good?
And
What's good? What? Any new books that are good?"
dude,
That's
I've
how I
said
got
it so
into
many
indies.
times, right? But like this, mhm. This is like the best time to be a nerd, right? Like, I don't know,
100%.
comics are popping off, movies are popping off, and then yeah, you're just talking to your shop owner, and they're recommending all sorts of stuff to you. And dude, it's like such a hard business too. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, but like comic stores are closing all the time, so definitely
Oh, 100%.
definitely support your LCS. It's a tough world out there, man. Like just as far as like the profit margins, I mean, prices of comics keep going up, but they're not like millionaires by any means, right? Um,
No, but I
So,
will
yeah.
say this: like, you can buy a book on like Amazon, and like I've done it. I did it last week.
Oh, yeah.
Like, but like, that Amazon's gonna be there. These comic
Yeah.
book stores, like these are people who like, they're not owned by like a big. No, it's just a person who decided like, let me open this. I like
Yeah.
comic books. Let me
it's
open
like
this.
they gotta have the passion, and they do, and they open it, and
Yeah, like Phil's has been open. Like my store has been open since like the 70s.
That's really cool.
So
Yeah. So
like,
they have like a lot of decades old customers that have been
oh yeah,
going there.
100%.
Like your
There's
girlfriend's
people that
dad.
yeah, he stopped in the 90s, but like they know him,
Mhm.
The guy that works there, Brian, used to shop there when he was like 8.
That's so
You
funny,
know?
dude. That's awesome. Yeah.
So I
think
do
for
want
me-
to
Oh, what
go
you
for
say?
it.
Oh
No,
yeah,
go
so I
for
was
it.
gonna say, like, definitely support your LCS in any way you can. For me, I do single issue comics. Sometimes I get a trade from there, um, but I definitely get all my comic book supplies from there just because I like to, pick it up while I'm there getting my single issues. I get a bunch of bags and boards or whatever. So
Oh yeah, I
definitely like
cannot have
Omnis
it.
though. I wouldn't get Omnis through my shop. No offense, but it's like spending full price or half off on one of these sites. So I know it's kind of like maybe hypocritical of me, but I buy enough
Here,
single
I'll
issues.
put it
Watch
like
my
this.
weekly comic calls.
I'll put it like this: support your LCS when it's like monetarily smart for you.
Yeah,
If you have the
yeah,
money
yeah,
to
there's
support
definitely a
them,
line for sure.
yes. But like, if you're gonna be spending $50 on like a $200 book, I'm not gonna blame you. But like
Yeah,
single issues, you're
that's
not gonna get
exactly it.
anywhere cheaper. Single issues, you're not gonna get them cheaper anywhere else. Just
Yeah,
might as well go to the store. It's might as well
yeah,
go to the
like
store. And
I mean to that point, like I know that if you had a pull list on like I don't know Midtown Comics, whatever, I think they give like 10% off. But even then, it's like that
Oh, yeah.
convenience isn't really worth it to me. I'd rather go to the shop and support them that way. So, but to your point, like
100%.
discounts on single issues online is very rare. Even digital, they're charging full price, right? So it's like I'd rather go to the shop
Oh,
and
yeah.
get the full
What,
comic
like-
book buying experience.
Yeah. Also, like I don't know, I don't read digitally because I like owning things. Like I don't know
Right.
why, I just like having things physically. But I don't. I know some apps for digital comic books, they don't come out at the same time.
For sure.
Not all of them. So like sometimes you have to wait even longer just because you're lazy. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Just because you don't want to drive to a store. Nah. I. It's more convenient to read online. I'll admit that. And sometimes, like for example, I started reading manga recently. Death Note. I've been reading all online, like on my iPad.
Mhm.
So like I get that, like some things like if you're trying to like jump into like Spider-Man and you want to read like the originals, like
It's hard to
back in
get,
'62,
Spider-Man number 1.
It's-
Yeah.
you're not gonna get Amazing Fantasy number 15 in your store. So like, yeah, you want to read that online, not gonna blame you. But like if you want
For
to
sure.
start reading like something like Nice House on the Lake that I just mentioned recently, that's like a 9-issue series right now. You can buy
Mhm.
this at a store. And
Yeah.
it's easy, And not only that, I will say the biggest thing about comic book stores is that if you buy something, most of the time someone's gonna be like, "Oh, if you like that, check this out." That's just how it works. Every time I buy something,
Yep.
people are like, "Hey, you might like this as well." So yeah.
Yeah, man.
Also, like,
That's like one of the best parts is
something-
getting recommendations from the shop.
100%. And something that I found out because I feel like for new readers at least, you know your Marvel, DC, and that's it. But then like I didn't know about indie comics until I started shopping. I didn't know what Image
And
was.
Indies are like way better most of the time, like consistently better. They're kind of
Oh,
pushing
yeah,
the
like-
boundaries and more daring, right? Like
Oh, like Saga? Saga is Marvel would have put out Saga.
yeah,
That
a
like
little
to me
too,
is like everything. A
Yeah,
little too
right.
much in every angle. So yeah,
hey,
like there's
actually Christian. You
Go for
finish your thought. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like you don't know the amount of stories there are out there until you walk into
Yeah.
a store. 100%.
That's when you really puts it into your, for sure. But anyway, I was gonna say, so this is a good segue, right, into like what we're currently reading. So yeah, I was just curious, like what do you got for me today?
Oh, so I'm gonna avoid going into single issue comics because like I can't count the amount of like I'm reading like 30 series right now.
Yeah,
so I'll go into my trades.
We could have a whole podcast on. Yeah.
Yeah, just like an episode
sure.
on like just Marvel. But nah, so like
yeah, right.
I mean, I had to put for anyone who's watching this, you can see what's on my desk. But for people who are driving right now, or cleaning a store, listening to this podcast like I used to do, I have Mr. Miracle here on my desk because I wanted to at least look cool. Because Cody has like a whole bookshelf behind him. So yes, I am reading Mr. Miracle because I heard it's great. Tom King is a good writer. And I am enjoying it. I just finished issue number 1 inside the trade. I started reading Invincible because I like the show a lot. I got the compendium number 1, which you have right there, Cody.
Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Venom by Donny Cates.
Nice.
And I think, okay, I have 2 more. I'm reading Hellboy, the first compendium or the first omnibus. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading Moon Knight by is it also Tom King? No, it's not. Are you
reading the Jeff Lemire run?
That one, yeah, Jeff Lemire. It's just the art is kind of similar to Mr. Miracle by Tom King and the Jeff Lemire run of Moon Knight. Yeah. So again, I'm confused. I'm still not good with writers. Like that's what I said. I know nothing.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, and we're gonna stress it again. Like, Christian and I are very new, so this whole podcast is kind of like us, growing as comic book readers and discovering new stories and stuff like that. So, but no, dude, everything you just listed off, like, those are some of the, like, if you look up like a list of 100 greatest comics of all time, like, those will all be on there. You know what I mean? Like, probably. You know what I mean? Like, so that's all.
I started with like and. I want to know first. I'm gonna say more, but I want to know about like what you're reading, because I feel like while we are similar, we have some differences in our reading. When it comes to reading, like sometimes you send me your pull list, and I'm like, what? I don't read that.
So in terms of like you, right? I'm not gonna mention single issues. Like there's time and a place for all of those, but as of right now, actually, so I'm reading. The big thing I'm reading is Paper Girls. So I have the complete story here. Definitely recommend. This is kind of like actually, I don't know if it's technically a compendium, but it is. It's pretty much a compendium. Same size as the...
It's 6 volumes, right?
I think good question. I never knew because I just had this compendium. But trying to catch up. So so this is kind of funny, right? So I was trying to read Thor by Jason Aaron in time for Thor: Love and Thunder, right? Fell behind on that.
You couldn't, right?
No, I didn't do it in time. Then I was like, okay, cool. I know that Paper Girl is coming out. I'm gonna read this whole thing. I read like half of it before, but I never finished it. So my goal is to finish this so I can read the show. But Sandman's also coming out, and I was trying to read Sandman Omnibus back here in time for the show. That's not gonna happen. There's no way I can read both this and that by tomorrow night when we're recording. And then also She-Hulk.
Well, look at it.
So I was trying to read the
look at it this way. It might be. I think we like reading like the books before watching the movies or shows because it's like, there's the source material, but I'm gonna say this: why not watch the show before reading it, and then you can be like, oh, this is. I like the book better.
Is better.
It's the same thing.
No,
yeah,
I think
actually, like
I'm totally with you.
Because for me, like Umbrella Academy, like I read the books right after watching the show, and like I happen to like the show more.
Yeah, right. So it's just like it just depends. Like some adaptations are worse or better than others. But yeah, so that was kind of like my goal, but it's already slipping, and I'm just gonna have to throw my hands up and be like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna read what I'm gonna read. I'm gonna watch what I'm gonna watch. Those shows aren't going anywhere. These books aren't going anywhere. I'll just take my time. You know what I mean? It shouldn't feel like a job.
If you watch the show before reading it, reading it, I wouldn't blame you.
Exactly. Right. So I think at some point you got to draw a line, and it's not supposed to be a job. It's supposed to be fun, right? Especially like I don't know for you, but I'm not doing content on. I'm not making any TikToks on Paper Girls, at least as of right now. Maybe I'll do like a review on the compendium when I finish, but I'm not going to cover the show. Sandman is
For me, I haven't started watching it.
Mhm.
I haven't
So
started
it's like,
watching it because my girlfriend wants to watch it with me. But
oh,
my
nice.
girlfriend wants to read it before watching it.
So she's in the
So
same
it's
boat, yeah.
same,
But
yeah, but she only
I will
owns two
say,
of the volumes, so it's gonna be kind of hard.
I will say though, Paper Girls is awesome. I think by the time I finish with it, it'll probably end up in probably like top 15. It's
That's
Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff
that's good.
Chang. The artwork is super clean and really colorful, and I'm a sucker for like anything sci-fi. Like, if the cover and solicitation on a new issue is like a new series is has anything with sci-fi, I'm probably gonna get it.
Spaceship.
Yeah, just like Spaceship issue 1, sign me up. I'll get all the variants now. But so yeah, I think it's it starts off as like just these four girls like on a paper route, and then like you're immediately thrown into this like time traveling like people are riding like pterodactyls with like zapper weapon
Yeah.
things that can like incinerate you, right? So it's just like it's totally up my alley, and the art is super clean. I've been reading Catwoman Lonely City, who Cliff Chang also does the artwork for that. So it's very similar, it's like very colorful, really thick like line work that she does. So yeah, that's what I've been reading, and I'm somewhere in volume 1 of Sandman. I'm actually reading that one digitally because I have it on my iPad because I can't read
Somewhere.
omnibus at night, but somewhere in it's tough when you're reading like collected editions to like know
Oh,
issue
100%.
1, 2, or 3.
Because like
whatever,
it'll
but-
show you the cover. It'll show you the cover, but it does. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh wow, I just reached
Yeah.
issue 37. Good.
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, so that's what I've been reading. So in theory, like, maybe I can finish. I'm about right here, so maybe I can finish all this like this weekend and watch the show. And
Okay.
next week I'll get to Sandman.
If
and
you,
whatever. But
I'm not even gonna attempt to watch to read Sandman. I mean, at some point I will, but I'm not. I know I'm not gonna finish reading it before the show comes out.
it's one of those things, dude, where
Like,
I'm like almost like too scared to make any like I don't even want to review Sandman. I don't want to touch that thing, right? Because it's like one of these. Like,
it's the Star Wars conundrum.
yeah, where it's just I wouldn't even like I would have to comprehend and like break it down, and like if I'm missing like a metaphor or something, like someone's gonna yell at me or something. But
It's one of those things where you can say like, "Hey, just so you know, this is just my opinion," and people are gonna say your opinion's wrong.
exactly. So I'll just keep Sandman to myself, and I'll read it by myself, and chat about it with crossover comics people. But I don't want to make my opinions about it known just in case. But yeah, so that's what I've been reading. Christian was saying. So I guess like maybe you could talk about like one of the things you were reading, like a little bit more in depth, and then.
Let me think. What am I reading right now? I mean, I mentioned a bunch of them, but the thing is, like, I'm sort of like I start reading them all at the same time. So
That's interesting. So like when you were
okay,
naming
I'll
off
say
a
this.
bunch of stuff, I was like, man, that's actually an interesting way of doing things. Everybody reads their own way, but I tend to stick to one. And
I'll
then
say this.
finish it out.
For me, it's pretty much like I walk by. Oh, look at that cover! I'm gonna read it. Like I look at my bookshelf, and it's like, what am I feeling today?
Right, I got you.
And I just pick it up. But okay, so I'll talk about Moon Knight by Jeff Lemire.
Okay.
Because it has some of the most beautiful art I've seen. And if you watch the show, if you haven't watched the show, like go away. I'm gonna spoil some things. Moon Knight, episode 5, deals with him in a mental institution.
Mm.
And this book is pretty much that. It's that story. but it's way crazier. Like it's like New York is like the desert. And it's weird, but I love it. It's so weird. Great, and like they switch art styles like from issue to issue. It's just fantastic. Like honestly, like I like Moon. I didn't know about Moon Knight like before the show got announced. Like I knew the name. Like I was like, oh yeah, Werewolf by Night. You know, first appearance. That's about it. But then I started reading Moon Knight, the current run, which like I always forget who writes it. I think it's Jet McKay, but I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong.
I think you're right.
But
well, actually, I think you're wrong. I can't remember. I'll pull it up while you're talking.
I could pull up. Okay, yeah. So, it's the current run of Moon Knight is fantastic. By the way, I want to say that it's one of my favorite things I'm reading, single issue wise. But man, Jeff Lemire's run is so good because it's just like its own little story, and the art style is fantastic. It really gets into the psychological aspect of Moon Knight, which in my opinion is the best aspect of the character. You know, so I recommend that to. I haven't finished it, and I'll recommend it to anyone. I don't.
Jed McKay,
I already know it's gonna be good.
By the way,
look at that. Look at that. Now I'll go all out and recommend it to anyone having not finished it. That's how good it is. I know it's gonna be good in the end. I don't need to finish it to recommend it to people. Oh, and I can say, you know, like I've been reading Death Note. I know it's not comic books, but it's manga, and it's sort of comic books.
Yeah, check out your review, man.
It's comic books that you read backwards from a totally different country, and they're in black and white, and they're all translated, and it's fantastic. It's my first manga ever, so like, don't expect me to be an expert. I read it on my iPad, and the app keeps telling me you're reading the wrong way because I'll swipe and I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. Yeah, the app has told me like at least 3 times, like, hey, you're going the wrong way, buddy. I'm like, man, this story is so confusing. I feel like I've read this before.
Nice, man. So that's what we're reading. We'll try to do that. We'll do that kind of like little breakdown because I'm sure every episode of this podcast will be reading different stuff.
We never established how often we're gonna do this.
Oh, well, I mean, we gotta figure that out in the background. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But so
I'll say expect it at least once a month.
Oh, for sure. At least. That, yeah, sure.
If we don't post it a month, we've just been busy.
Yeah, that's an easy goal. So every episode we're gonna have a big topic. It's gonna change from it's gonna change from episode to episode. But this episode for issue number 1 of Color Break, your third favorite comic book podcast, our big topic is 5 comics that we love. So we're not claiming these are the best of all time. They might not even be our favorites. But just 5 that we love, you know?
It's like our top 5 when we thought about it.
Exactly, right. Exactly. Like, because, like, and I want to stress again, right? Maybe Christian's read Swamp Thing, right, by Alan Moore, but I haven't, right? So that's not going to be on my list. There's only stuff that I've read. And this doesn't include current ongoing series. I try to really focus it on... Actually, that's a lie. I just lied to you, audience. Anyways, Christian, why don't you hit me with your number 5 or the first one if it's not in any order.
Okay. No, I'll do my number 5, you'll do your number 5. That's how we're going to do it.
All right. Mine's not in any specific order. It's just 5 that I thought of. So, but yeah, I will give you my first one.
Well, then I did my number 5 is Batman Hush.
Okay.
Because it's a great story. In my opinion, Batman Hush is the best Batman story I've read up until the end.
I feel you there.
And it sort of like just ends.
Yeah.
And like
absolutely.
I haven't found a clear sequel to it, and like I said, we're new to this. Don't take this like it's just my expert opinion. There might be a sequel. I don't know. Like, I know Long Halloween has a sequel. I just
Right.
haven't honestly looked that much, but like for how thick of a book that was, to not have an actual ending,
Right. It does.
I
It is
I was
very
like, man, this was so great.
anticlimactic for sure. But so
Yeah, I read so much, and I loved it up until the last page. I was like, okay,
so to me, right?
but it still
Batman
makes the
Hush.
top five.
Hmm. So Batman Hush for me was definitely one of the first ones that um, I read, and it's really cool because for those that aren't aware, right? Like you learn a ton of like if you had not if you didn't know anything about Batman, that's probably like one of the five stories that I would recommend. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree, right? Because you
Oh,
see so
it
many
it
different of
has
Batman's
every
villains,
character.
right? Exactly. It's like it touches on all of Batman's rogues, pretty much, the main ones, and then it also dives
Superman,
back
like,
into yeah, right, some other characters in the DC universe. It goes back into his, flashbacks of Bruce as a child, right? Um, and so that was like really cool. It's kind of expanding the Batman mythos, but also giving
oh
you
yeah,
like a little dabble of a lot of different DC characters. So it's definitely a good one to recommend to start for sure.
okay, Cody, what's your number five?
Yeah. So my number five. Let me get this list here. Oh yeah. So Walking Dead, right? Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead.
Okay,
I have Compendium, 1, 2, 3, 4 up there. To me, that one was kind of like back in the day when my mom was trying to get me into comics, around the time where the Walking Dead TV show was starting, right? Um, my mom got me Compendium #1. It's actually the one right there, and I like binged that thing. Like I read it cover to cover in like maybe 3 sittings, right? Um, and it was so cool because this was around Christmas time when I got it, and we were getting ready to, like, we were watching the show as it comes out, and my mom and dad would tell me like, "All right, what happens next?" Because they wanted to know like what happened in the next episode. Um, so I would like read ahead and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, so this is what happens to Glenn," or like whatever, right? Um, so yeah, that's just
yeah,
always like
the
a
comics, like, I my story with The Walking Dead, like, I own the first 50 in the deluxe version, like
with
colored,
color, yeah.
and I haven't read no, well, the first 44. I haven't read any of them. I used to own the first 12, like first edition, but in Spanish.
Oh, yep.
They're probably somewhere in Ecuador, like in my grandma's house. Like they still have them. But like, yeah, the comics go fast.
They
Like
do, right? Like it's so
there's no like, yeah, from issue 1 to like issue like 3, you're already in season 2 of the show.
for sure, right? Um,
It's very fast.
but it was super awesome because it's kind of like at that point, like you were saying earlier, right? Like I didn't really know too much about indie comics at the time, and I didn't know comics like that existed, right? Like when I first started reading Walking Dead, like this stuff is really dark and it's kind of gritty, and I really like the black and white. It was just so different than anything I'd read before. So it's something that I've always. It's probably time for me to reread it, but I got a lot of stuff to read. I can't be rereading too many things, you know. Um, but yeah,
For me, the entire reason why I got into Walking Dead was because of a misunderstanding.
okay.
My cousin came. I used to live in a building, and my cousin came up to my house because he used to live in the first floor, I lived in the second one. And he came up to my house, and he was like, "Your favorite character in The Walking Dead just got shot." And I can tell you, it's like season 2, episode 5, when Daryl gets like shot by
Oh,
Andrea
right.
in the farm, and like he doesn't get shot; he just like races his head the bullet. But and I told him like, I don't watch that show. I don't know what you're talking about. You're my cousin. I don't know why you're like just assuming I like this show. He was like, no, isn't it your favorite? And I was like, nah, I've never watched this show
That's
at all.
awesome. He even
First
said
of all,
it's
I
your
don't like
favorite
horror
character.
things. I don't like. Oh yeah, it's like I don't like horror in general, and I told my mom because my mom likes horror, and she was like, "Hey, let's watch it. Why not?"
Right.
And yeah, it's one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah, that's how it was for my family, right? Like
This is-
we would watch every new episode, and then I'd be reading the comics, and I'd be like, "Yo, guys, check out this page. Like this is gonna happen. Like whatever, whatever." So it's just like a way that me and my family was able to connect with me and my nerdy stuff, and kind of like bridge that gap, and they got to see like, wow, actually comics are kind of cool. but they don't read comics. But
That's sort of how I feel right now. That's sort of how I feel right now with my dad watching the MCU.
oh, yep,
Like he watches all of them now.
nice. So now
And
it's like something you guys can
like
bond over.
if I go downstairs on a Sunday, he's watching Endgame, just
Nice.
Endgame. That's his favorite one. We have this funny joke where like I go downstairs every Sunday, he's watching it, and I said, "Hey, what are you watching?" And he says, "Oh, this new movie."
Nice.
And I'm like, "Oh, tell me about it." And then we sit down and watch it, and like we'll just pretend like we don't know what's going on.
That's
Every
funny.
week.
That's like a dad
So
thing. That's awesome. Yo, okay.
yeah,
What's
so,
your
like
number
I feel
4?
you with The Walking Dead. So.
Oh, yeah.
My number 4 is The Vision by Tom King. Tom King,
Nice.
who also wrote Mr. Miracle. That's such a good story. It's it has to have been the inspiration behind WandaVision. Like you that or in House of X.
For sure.
Or House of M. Is it House of X or
House
M?
of M.
One of the houses they have. Yeah, the Vision is Vision starts a family, man. He just becomes a family man and wants to live a normal life. But we know that can't happen. So it's fantastic. And Vision, I'm going to say it right now, I never cared about Vision, even in the movies. Never cared about him. You could, when Vision, like, like, spoilers for a movie that came out 3 years ago, Infinity War, when Vision gets unalived, I didn't feel anything. I was like, okay, Vision's gone. Okay, I mean that sucks for the rest of them, but like, okay, yeah, I don't care. And then I read The Vision by Tom King, and I'm so attached to Vision now
Right.
because it makes him such an interesting character. It honestly makes him like a full like person, like him
Yeah.
trying to like maintain like a family, and like trying to avoid things going wrong because like people still look at him like he's an android.
Right.
It's not like people change their minds. So I recommend that to anyone. Like I don't know if you read it, Cody.
It's
but
been on my list for a while. I actually almost got it in my my last Barnes and Noble haul or whatever, but I was trying to get the complete collection, and it just didn't fit in the budget.
Oh, yeah,
at that
that's
point.
the one-
But I definitely
that's-
want to get it at some point.
that's the one I have. It's
Yeah.
it's not a long run, by the way, for anyone who's wondering. It's like for 10 issues or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's funny because that's the first trade paperback I ever owned.
Oh,
And when I was starting my TikTok account, I said I wrote it in a napkin. I had like video ideas, and one of the video ideas was the Vision review.
nice.
And to this day, it's been started 5 months ago, almost 5 months ago. I haven't reviewed it.
One day,
My review still doesn't exist. It was the first video I ever planned, but like someday it'll
Yeah.
happen.
Uh,
The thing is, like, no one knew that I was planning on doing it, but now people might hold me up.
right. um, all right, so I'm looking through
What's your number 4?
my number
Cody?
4. All right, so you mentioned Batman Hush earlier. So I got Batman Year One on my list. Batman Year One for me was, cause I mean the animated show is dark and like Batman Begins is like kind of dark and grounded, right? But just seeing a different version of the same kind of like journey that I saw like in the movies first, you know what I mean? That was really cool, and
Mhm.
he's working with Gordon. Very early stages of their relationship was really awesome. The getting to know like Catwoman on that level, like the very start. I think Batman Year One is probably, if you ask most people, they'd probably say like at least top 5 Batman stories. So yeah,
Yeah,
Batman
I'd
Year
even say
One,
top 3, probably.
probably right, yeah. And the
How'd
art
you
is
feel about
super
that
awesome,
ending,
too.
though?
The ending of Year One.
How'd you feel about the ending?
It's better than Batman Hush.
It's better than the ending of Hush, but it's also very open. Like,
right.
things might happen later, guys.
Yeah, well, that's always.
But
how it
I
is.
mean, Batman Year One, from my understanding of Year One, like it was just like a story they did, and it just became like more canon than they expected. Like people just liked it so much that they were like, "Hey guys,
Yeah, I think
let's just sort of like
I
keep
forgot the
this."
story about that. I'm sure someone will let us know, but it's like it fit in with one of their, not like a relaunch of the Batman title, but it was like an arc in, Batman like 409 to 4 whatever, that kind of just was taken out of time, new creative team. They just did Batman Year One, and then it kind of went back to normal after that. And then of course now it's collected in its own trade and kind of spun off in that way. Um, but yeah, dude, Batman Year One, gotta love it. Christian, what's your number three?
I think. Oh, my number 3. I don't even know, man. That's the thing. Like, I want to tell people that like I recommended this topic. I said, hey, we should do our top 5. Right before this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave it for last minute, so I picked like my actual 5.
Gotcha, right.
God Country by Donny Cates.
Dang, man.
God
Still
Country
have
by
not
Donny Cates.
read that. Tell me a little bit about why you love God Country, dude.
It's I like Donny Cates, and I will say he's probably like, if not my favorite, my top 3 writers of all time. And he's just a very good writer, and you can tell that like he wrote it from a place of like an emotional place. And I'll tell you just a little bit. It's about a man who has Alzheimer's, I think, and then a sword from another planet lands on his by his farm, and he picks it up, and like he just has powers. I think the sword's name is Valofax, but I could be wrong. I'm not gonna fact check it. Well, you just gotta take my word for it.
So like the emotional hook, right, is that he, and maybe you're about to say it, but he gets all his memories back when he has a sword, right?
Yeah, but if he gives up the sword, he loses his memories.
Exactly.
So
that's where the conflict comes
also,
in.
like, you gotta remember that this sword was owned by someone else who probably wants it back.
Right.
So there's the conflict, and it was the first comic book that made me cry when I finished it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I will say that it's the first book that made me cry. The second book that made me cry was also a Donny Cates book. That's not here. Pretty good. Donny Cates I think Donny Cates just makes me cry, man.
Nah, dude. I think. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my top. That's my number 3.
Yeah, dude. It's always gonna be there as something that I want to read, and like I know it'd probably be like an afternoon read, but I know I'm gonna love it so much that I'm not in a rush to read that. If that makes any sense, because I'm not like.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this: they're making a movie about them.
Okay.
I think they're making a movie. If I'm not mistaken, Netflix is making a movie.
Okay.
So I'm letting you know right now, so you can read it before the movie.
So I can, instead of like the night before the movie comes out. Yeah, dude.
Exactly.
God Country, dude. Number 3. All right, let's see. What do I got for number 3? All right, so we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Saga is on my number 3. And earlier,
wow.
I don't know, viewers and audience, if you remember, I lied to you. I said I only chose stuff that is not ongoing. Of course, Saga came back for its second half earlier this year. But I actually haven't read, this is going to make me sound really stupid, but I haven't read any of the stuff when it came back because I wanted to reread the first compendium I have here before I got to those new issues because I want to be like fresh. I want to remember everything. So I haven't reread it and caught up with the
like
ongoing,
3.
But
There's like 3 issues out now. So like,
I think there's.
I'll let it slide, man.
There must be. I can't remember actually, but dude, Saga.
Listen, it's
so
gotta be like just 5.
Saga.
I am.
so
First of all, I gotta say, I own all of Saga because Cody gave it to me.
He got it. He won
on
my
a
giveaway.
giveaway on TikTok.
Yep.
And I want to read it physically. Like I have it for when like if I'm like traveling or like I'm at work,
Yep.
I'll read it. But physically, I have up to like volume 7 because I like collecting like every single volume.
There's 5
for some
out,
reason,
by the
which
way.
is more
Sorry,
expensive than like.
sorry to cut you off, but
Okay.
5 new ones.
Thank you for fact checking, Cody. But yeah, I'm probably on like volume 5 of Saga, and like yes, fantastic. If anyone wants to start reading comic books and you are over 18, let me stress that if you're over 18,
Oh, true.
Saga is it. That's it.
It is very adult, but I think in the same way that kind of Walking Dead kind of pushed my understanding of what comics could be and like a horror and like art style.
Oh, 100%.
In that way, right? Like Saga is, yo, what if we just blow your mind with storytelling and making you care about every character and the world that they're building, right? So they kind of blew my mind in that way. Um, but yeah, that's definitely a series, and I think I'm at a point now where if I reread it like today, I would get way more out of it than I did when I first read it. And that's definitely something that, Saga
Yeah.
is, maybe it's unique in that way where you can kind of get something out of it the more you read it. But yeah,
I want to say this. You know how we're getting the Paper Girl show, the Sandman show, like Umbrella Academy, like all these books that I hadn't read before the shows came out. Um, and like there's shows like I haven't watched two of them, but like shows that I ended up liking. I will say I am in love with Saga. If they ever make a show or a movie out of that, I'm gonna be so angry.
Right, like we'll be in that
I don't
camp
know.
where people are mad that the Umbrella Academy isn't like true to whatever.
I don't think they could do it.
Yeah,
No, I don't think they could do Saga, and I will say that right now. I think they would have to cut out so much
that it wouldn't even be Saga
because
anymore.
it's no, it's not a book for kids. Man.
Well, I mean the show,
you
show
have
would
to
be
stress
for kids,
that.
like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I know what you mean.
But like, do you think? Okay, I'm gonna say this without spoiling it to anyone. Do you think they would do the dragon?
Well, like, okay, listen. How about this, right? They've done like crazy stuff in The Boys, right? So I feel like it wouldn't be an adult show if they did do Saga, and I feel like I don't want to see them attempt to do it, but maybe it could be done if that makes any sense. I don't want them to even try because they won't hit it. But
I feel like it. Okay, I'll say this. I don't want them to, but if they do it, I will watch it.
For
I
sure.
know myself.
Yeah, and we'll be part of the problem. We'll be complaining about it all the time. Christian, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a book that I feel like could be on everyone's top 5. I don't think it'll be on yours though. It's Wolverine, Old Man Logan.
Haven't read it yet. It's been on my list though.
And I'll just say because it's the first book that I picked up. You know how like I said like, oh, I read this, I'll read like a volume, like read one issue in the volume and then put the book down and come back to it. Old Man Logan was the first book that I picked up and couldn't put down.
Gotcha. So you just binged the whole thing.
Like Old Man, 100%. I read it twice in a row. I was like, oh, that was so good. I don't know if I got all of that.
Nice, dude.
So yeah, there's not much I could say about Old Man Logan that people don't know. But if you don't know anything about it, I'm just gonna give you a 5-second rundown. Wolverine is old. That's it. I don't know what else to say. It's just he's old now.
Yeah, dude. It's been on my
He's
list.
settled down.
Yeah. Because I like Logan, the the X-Men movie. It's kind of, from what I've heard, right? I haven't read Old Man Logan, but it definitely probably takes a lot from the Old Man Logan source material.
They are totally different. Okay. They're totally different, but I see where like they could have gotten some inspiration.
Okay. Yeah, dude.
But I totally recommend it to anyone. I'll be honest right now. I know we said we're not new. Like, we're new. I have never read an X-Men title in my. I know nothing about the X-Men. Like I know they're like, like people who go to a school and like they're a team and they all have different powers. Other than that, I know nothing. I know some of their names. I know the popular ones. Like I watched the movies. But this has to be in my top 5.
Yeah, so
because it's just great.
How good the book is.
You don't need to read anything before, like any X-Men before. If you don't know anything about Logan or like Wolverine, like whatever you want to call it, you don't need to. You really don't need to. You'll just find out when you read the book, and it's
so. I
think
for me, I'm totally with you. Where X-Men just seems, it's overwhelming, right? Like I know stuff that's going on in the Marvel universe, but X-Men is like that whole other side where, they're kind of doing their own thing. And the only X-Men thing that I've actually read was X-Men Grand Design, and if anybody is curious, that kind of like boils down the entire X-Men history into like, really quick bites. So that's like my only exposure to X-Men, which is, I don't know if you would say this, I don't know if you would say it this way, Christian, but it's a little like embarrassing, I guess, right? Like just everybody's so big on the X-Men, and I feel like I'm missing out. But it's just because it's so daunting. That
I'll
so
say this
series, but
I know I started crossover comics. I never like to say that I created it. Like I always like when I talk about it, I say founding member.
Right.
But like okay, let's say I created this. It's so weird for me to like be in something like I started with like 50 other people, and like they all talk about like these books that I have no idea about, and like sometimes people will be like, "Hey, Comic Book Stash, can we do this?" And which I appreciate a lot. I don't consider myself a leader. I will be a leader if I have to, but like sometimes they'll be like, "Hey, X-Men," and I'm like, "Yep, they exist." That's about it, though.
Dude, one day
I know about their presence in the
one day
universe.
we'll get into X-Men like real heavy. Maybe that could be like a big topic. Like, we'll read like an X-Men storyline or something and just like totally geek out.
We'll pick a run. We will both buy it.
That could be like a big topic for one of our episodes. That could be cool. But yeah, dude, Old Man Logan. Let me see. What number am I on? Okay, so kind of along the same line. So this is my number 2, right? I have Marvels. Kurt Busiek, Alex Ross. Is that a hot take? I don't know if it's a hot take, but
I don't know why I don't know why I didn't put that in.
So we can both talk about it now. But so I actually read this very recently, and I did a review on it for my TikTok, and man, that was in the same way for you, Old Man Logan. Like I read it in like I'd say 1.5 sittings, because I kind of like doubled back and reread some stuff, but it's like blew my mind, right? Like mostly from Alex Ross's artwork, because he's this legendary artist, but just to see him, like, man, it's
just the characters. Like Phil Sheldon is such a good character.
A legend, right?
If you haven't read Marvels and if you played the Marvel Avengers game for the PS4, Phil Sheldon's the reporter that shows up in the background sometimes. Yeah. That's my man.
So it's just kind of the story of the Marvel universe, not like the main one, but just from like this alternate universe where everything happens in real time. And Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross chose to focus the story on a photojournalist reporter named Phil Sheldon, and you see him. It's focused on him, right? Like all the other Marvel characters are just out in the world, and right. So it's really
this is the background. Imagine living in the universe. That's it.
So he's like growing old. He has a family, has a wife, but at the very start you're seeing like the original Human Torch and the Submariner and Captain America, and everybody's freaking out about the mutants at some point. And
I think the mutants is like my favorite part, because like he's afraid of them.
So he gets caught in the whole like we hate muties kind of talk.
Yeah, doesn't he throw a brick at one of them?
And it nails. I forgot who it nails actually. Maybe Iceman. I forget. But then you see.
Yeah, it's just so random.
Like the Silver Surfer, and the Coming of Galactus, and the Death of Gwen Stacy, right? So it's just all of the Marvel Universe like comics greatest hits throughout time, and it's kind of boiled down. And Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross do a masterful job giving it to you as kind of like a cliff notes, but that's not even the main point. It's really Phil Sheldon and how he is living in this world, right? So yeah, dude, the Marvels.
It's the first full series I ever owned, and I will say, do you own the single issues?
No, I have the so actually.
So you had the trade paperback.
So I have the it must be like the I don't want to put a year on it, but it's maybe like one of the first printings they did of the trade paperback, but it's hardcover and
94.
Really, leather bound, and I actually got it from Ghost Dad Comics.
Oh, that's nice.
Purchased it off her like one of her first Whatnot streams, so it's really cool to have.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah,
It's missing. It's missing
it's the
the
first
epilogue
full
issue.
series I ever. It's the first full series I ever owned.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 4 issues. If you count the epilogue, it's 5.
Right.
But yeah, the single issues are like. Listen, my favorite character, like, and I know this is not in the topic we discussed. My favorite character is Spider-Ham. I had the first appearance of Spider-Ham ever, and I would still choose Marvel's issue number 1
Oh, as like your favorite single issue.
because it's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Like, you have to, Cody, you have to buy it. Like, it's first of all, it looks like a magazine. Like the cover's plastic and it's see through. So like it sort of looks like that like Time magazine, like the red outline that says Marvels, and like then you open it and it's a picture of the Human Torch, and it's beautiful. And it's not expensive to buy, even though it's a 1994 printing of this
like,
book, like the original.
Along that
printing.
lines, actually, it's kind of funny because that's one of the, like, I don't see myself double dipping a lot for a series that I have like collected and getting the single issues, but the Marvels is absolutely one of those that I would not mind at all finding the single issues and having that as well, just because it's such a important series to me. But yeah, Marvels.
I don't know, and they're beautiful. It's not just like paper print. No, it's actually like they went all out with making these books, and I bought them for like $10 each, if not $5 each. They're not hard to find, so I recommend it. Just go out and look for it, because like, if anyone wants to get into Marvel, I feel like that's probably what I would say.
I would agree. Yeah, it's
that.
like,
read Marvels.
you could know, like, okay, maybe you know like what Spider-Man, like whatever, his origin story, stuff like that, but this has nothing to do with it, but it does give you a glimpse into all these different Marvel characters, so I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
I
feel like that's the best starting point for Marvel.
I was trying to think of, because I knew I wanted to get Alex Ross on this list. Even though this is like top 5 that we can think of at this
my
moment.
favorite artist. Yeah, I own the epilogue. I own the epilogue autographed by Alex Ross.
Cool. Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things.
I was trying to decide between Kingdom Come or Marvels, but I really feel like I don't know which one I like more, but Marvels is more recent on my mind, so that's why I
feel like for me, I'll say this, and like it's not. I know Kingdom Come is a good story, but when I was reading it, I didn't like catch me or like hook me in.
I feel you. Yeah.
For some reason, it's still fantastic, but it's. I feel like between Kingdom Come and Marvels, Kingdom Come is it's a harder book to read.
For sure.
You have to like actually.
It's a little more meaty,
and
like
you have to like put your full mind into it.
For sure, and it doesn't. It does have like emotional hooks, right? But it doesn't have Phil Sheldon, right? You're missing the legend.
Does it have Phil Sheldon?
All right, Christian, are you on your number 1, dude?
Top 3 comic book characters.
Let me hear it. Dude.
I'm on my number 1. It's a long title, so it's The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys National Anthem by Gerard Way. You don't know him, lead singer of My Chemical Romance. I have some information about this book actually that like I don't need to look up anywhere. I just know this because I know things sometimes. So the last My Chemical Romance album is called Danger
Classic.
Days, right? Great album. It's a concept album, and Gerard Way wanted to make, this Fabulous Killjoys story, and he at some point he was just like, you know what, I'll just make it into an album. I have a band, let's make it into an album. He makes it into an album with music videos that tell the story, right? And then they do a comic book series afterwards that continues like the story of the music videos. That's really good. It's okay. But then a couple of years after that, he was like, no, that was not my original idea. Gonna actually commit to telling the story I wanted to tell. So if you're looking for it and you see True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys National Anthem and True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys California is the one that's a sequel to the album. National Anthem is the original story that he wanted to tell. And what a story.
I do.
I know you own it,
somewhere
Cody.
on the to-be-read list, but it's actually this back
It's fantastic.
right
there. It's a good story, great art. It's for me. Here's the thing: I put it in my number one because I just like when people ask me about comic books. It's the first one I think to mention. The story's good. It's not gonna blow your mind story wise. Like it's not like this like unbelievable story. Like it's very good, but that's about it. But the art is just so beautiful that I could not let it go.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking of like there's one explosion in the book that's just like I keep thinking of that one panel.
Right.
So yeah, True Lives, The Fabulous Killjoys national anthem.
Yeah, dude. I remember that's like one of the first recs that I got from you, and one day, dude, I promise you I'll read it. It's there. It's there. But
it's probably I think it's my first review.
okay.
Probably.
I know that back in the day I used to listen to My Chemical Romance all the time, so it's kind of funny that Gerard Way, cool. It's like one of those things, like, oh, cool. But then like hearing you talk about like kind of the backstory behind it, it's like, okay, cool. So that definitely puts it up on my to be read list, man. All right, let's see. Number one for me, and I want to stress that like this kind of list, I kind of wanted to give more of like a get to know me type thing. Like I don't necessarily think these are like the top 5 of all time, but these are kind of maybe touching my Walking Dead, which back in the day, and then Batman Year One of my favorite characters of all time, like kind of that sort of thing. Favorite artist, Alex Ross.
Okay, I want to say this. We cannot get into top 5 of all time.
There's no shot.
Because like I could be thinking about Marvel, and then like Mouse.
Yeah, I got Mouse.
Mouse
down there actually.
Yeah. So like then Mouse could be top 1, and like
exactly.
I haven't read. We
because
don't have to
so
like think
new,
of like
right?
just the big
this
two.
Is
Or,
just
like, I don't think I'll ever be able to tell.
I wanted to get my favorite artist with Alex Ross and the Marbles, but then I want to get one of my favorite my favorite writers of all time. So Jeff Lemire, and the book that I chose for my number one is Maze Book by Jeff Lemire. It's a series that came out of Dark Horse last year, and it's the story of this dude whose daughter has died. It's very tragic, and we kind of don't get like the whole full story and like how she died. We just assume maybe like cancer or something, right? But his life, we get introduced to him at some point. We get introduced to him at a time where he's.
It's not funny, but it just
I don't know why you're laughing. It makes me laugh, but
it just made me laugh when you were like, "We don't know how she died."
Yeah.
When you were like, "I don't know how she died, maybe cancer." I don't know. Like just this random thing. Yeah, like people get it.
Introduced to this character, this dad, when he's at his lowest, right? It's been, I don't know, a year or two after his daughter had passed away, and his life is just absolutely in ruins. And we find out that he has divorced his wife has divorced him, who they had the daughter with, and he's like on his own, and he's working this like really dead end like contractor job, and he doesn't really like it, and all of a sudden he gets this call in the middle of the night. It sounds like his daughter. So he and he's like, my daughter's still alive. So it's kind of in the same way that you were talking about the Moon Knight thing, where you're not sure what's real and what isn't real in the terms of the story. He goes on this quest to try to find, if there's even a possibility that my daughter is still alive, like I'm gonna go get her, right? And that, by the end of the story, I'm not gonna spoil it here because I definitely think it's a worthwhile read for everybody. But
I haven't read it, so
it's
good.
Definitely a great story, and the art is, it's kind of weird because the art isn't, it might not be for everybody. But it totally serves what the purpose was trying to do. The purpose of the story was trying to do, and it's very like wispy and dreamlike, and the colors are used very sparingly. It's almost like a watercolor type thing, but it's just like one of the most emotional stories that I've read, and it like immediately made Jeff Lemire jump up on one of my favorite writers of all time. And I'm trying to get everything that Jeff Lemire has written in hardcover. As best edition that I can, because I really respect what he does as a writer, because of Maze Book. So
I will say, like, I think Maze Book, I hadn't heard of it, but like now hearing about it and then putting God Country on the list, people sometimes ignore or forget that comic books are not just like this superhero like
Yeah,
thing.
for sure.
They can have very emotional stories, and then like even a story like Mouse, like very important stories. And I want to buy Mace book. I might buy it right
Dude,
now.
Maze Book is it
That's how I feel. Like these
like, and that's one of those that like you put it best when you're talking about like comic books can be these emotional. They're not all superheroes bashing against supervillains, right? Like this to me, especially like since we're so young in terms of comic book readers, this just shows to me like, nah, dude, comic books can be this emotional. Like they really can, and people like Jeff Lemire are always pushing that and kind of flexing their creative muscles. And I think, I don't know, I could. It's almost making me like choke up like talking about Maze Book because I just remember reading it and I'm like reading it on the couch. My girlfriend's next to me. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, after you read like the conclusion and yeah, it really is just like tragic, like melancholy, uplifting at some parts, like story. That is kind of, it breaks your brain with like what's true and what's not true, and you're always like guessing. So, but yeah, that's my number one, dude.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick because it really shows people that like like even like I want to say the right name, but like is it Heartstopper? You know what I'm talking about? That Netflix show?
I can't remember.
I think it's called Heartstopper. This is a show, and like I know it's about like an LGBT QIA plus relationship, and it's based on a comic book, and like those things are important.
Sure.
I have friends who connect to Heartstopper, and like people probably will connect to Facebook.
Yeah,
people
dude, for sure. Like that,
and like
it's like almost hard to explain. Like to your point, like I don't necessarily know if anything has like that tragic has happened to me, right? But it's just something that is so human, like this emotion, like grief. You know what I mean? So the fact that Jeff Lemire can get through like, the pages of the comic, if I remember correctly, I think he did the art for it too, which is like super talented of him. But yeah, comics are important, man, and they can be emotional, and yeah, they're really just my favorite like new medium that I'm very fortunate that I'm getting into now. So.
Oh, 100%. I've been trying to like write one, and I think every comic book fan does that. But as a filmmaker, someone who like I studied film, I went to college for film. I look at like even comic books can be like you're literally like it's a guide, it's your storyboard for a movie if you want to see it. Look at it like that. Like, you can play that comic book in your brain, man. Like I don't know how you think, but like I think visually, and like I can see the entire story like develop, and like like I think for me the biggest take with this, and I'm not saying this as a closing statement, although I might have to, just because I don't know how long we've been here for, and I don't want to like have people just this is not like a 4-hour road trip, but comic books sometimes you will see some toxic fandoms. I've seen it, I've witnessed it with my own eyes, and but don't look at that as the only way it goes. Like comic books are not just what you see in the movies. It's not just the comic book story guy from The Simpsons. It's not just Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. It's a great community. And it's people who will like definitely have your back.
Dude, I think what we
and these stories,
what we've kind of started with Crossover Comics, man. I think it's super great. We have that positive community, and we're just people making positive comic book content, putting it out in the world. I think that's the perfect way to end issue number 1 of Color Break, your third favorite comic book podcast. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, and I my closing statement, I want you to say something after me, just so
for sure. Yep.
Because you hosted it. I know we talked about, like God Country and like Macebook being this emotional stories. If you read Spider-Man or Batman and you're in a tough spot in your life psychologically, just economically, you're just going through something, and you happen to connect with the Riddler, like you happen to just find a character like Spider-Man, find a character you can relate to, and like it brings you out of that hole. It doesn't have to be an emotional story for you to anchor into that and like have that be your saving grace. I know for me, when I have a bad day, I've read comic books that have got me out of like a dark spot. I think we're human beings. Like we go through like not good days, and comic books for me are something that just make me happy. So like, not just because we have books like Macebook that are extremely like emotional, it doesn't mean that that's it. You can find these like Spider-Ham. For me, I love Spider-Ham. When I'm having a bad day, I might just read some Spider-Ham, and it's a very silly, stupid character. No one would ever be like, "Yo, when I'm sad, Spider-Ham." No, that's me. Don't be ashamed if your comfort read is like the dumbest book ever, because if it's your comfort.
Yeah, man, that's absolutely well said.
You got anything to say?
No, I think I don't know. I'm excited to go on this little journey with you, dude. And like we said before, I'm sure we'll have guests every now and then, but it really is just me and Christian chat about comics, man. So thank you guys. Thank you, audience, viewers, listeners, for tuning in. That's issue number 1 of Color Break.
Yeah, we don't have a name for you.
It's just audience, But yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Color Breakers. Thank you, Color Breakers. That's not gonna be your. I refuse to do that. Thank you for anyone that listened.
We'll come up with the name later.
Whether you're driving or working.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.